Alrighty, how's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming back in for the latest post-game coverage here in WardyNYM. And as you guys have seen, it doesn't matter if it's a win or a loss for the Mets. We will make sure that we are covering it all throughout the entirety of the season. My apologies to everyone that thought that I would be doing an in-game live stream today. I had intentions originally, then something unfortunately came up, and that went in hand with towards the beginning of the game, so I wasn't able to do an in-game live stream. And in hindsight, that probably was a good thing because the Mets ended up losing tonight 5-2 to the San Francisco Giants. I have a lot to say about this game, and don't get me wrong, I'm definitely a little bummed out to see them lose after what was such a high yesterday in that doubleheader sweep. And that is, again, as I've said plenty already, the beauty and the curse about having a 162 season. I love baseball. I love when you have a tough loss because the Mets, again, they have a game around 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow to try to get the series victory. So it's not like that this is much shelf life, but the same thing goes even with your victories if you, in fact, lose the next day. So while I would have liked to enjoy that doubleheader sweep a little bit longer, no less, this was a good kind of, statement game. I expected the Giants to come out guns a-blazing in this one. You should have too, especially after losing both those games on a cold day at Citi Field, and they were a grind for sure. But the Mets had a grind in this one too, even though that, yes, they definitely got worked by Carlos Rodon for the innings that he pitched. So like I said, a lot to get into in this 5-2 Mets loss. There are some positives to take away from this loss, and there are definitely some negatives. We'll be deep diving it all, but I first want to shout out everyone so much that's first chiming into the post game. I want to shout out Dominic, great member on the channel. Chris, how's it going? Todd, Josh, Keith, Chris, David, Oliver, Sean, Mikey. Let's see, Chris, the Blindbeard, Blindbeard. I always say bird. I do apologize. Eric, Joshua, LSY, Optic, Chris, George, Andrew, Manuel, Big Wheeze, all you guys, Todd, thank you all so much for being here. Everyone just chiming in, really appreciate. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on if you guys are looking for the post-game show. I know we're not looking forward to discussing the NL, but again, I was satisfied in part with how the Mets performed in this one. Definitely not satisfied in other aspects, but in all, if you guys are new here, what we will be doing today is I'll be breaking down, sharing my analysis on everything that transpired in this game along with the highlights as you see here. Unfortunately, they aren't just Mets highlights I'm showing because there were more Giants positives in this game than there were Mets. But no, let's get into it, guys. I'll be answering all your questions, comments, and concerns after I break down what transpired in this game. Of course, this will be a shorter post game than yesterday for certain, especially given the fact that the Mets have a game literally right around 1 tomorrow. So it's not like that we're going to have much time to worry about this loss. But still, Mets lose 5-2. And how did they lose? You had a big pitching matchup coming into this game between Chris Bassett and Carlos Rodon, both who have been fantastic to start the season, but one clearly out-edged the other as Chris Bassett got jumped on right from the beginning. The same exact playbook that the Giants had against Tyler McGill in game 1 of the doubleheader yesterday. They were swinging at first pitches when they weren't known to be doing that entering this series, and they jumped on Bassett quite easily. Bassett did not give up too much hard contact other than the Brandon Belt solo shot on his birthday, of course, that you saw in the second inning. But in the first inning, you just saw single after single after single. Again, this was a common trend that we saw in the Giants' first game of this series. Not so much in the second game because Scherzer just carved them up, which was so awesome. Can't get over Mad Max's performance last night. But Bassett, again, had his worst start as a Met, the worst start among all starters for the Mets this season. But he did ease in nicely after giving up those early runs and kept the Mets at least in a respectable range where if they could just get some offense on Carlos Rodon, we might have a chance in this game because Bassett retired the final 7 batters he faced through 97 pitches as a whole, had 6 strikeouts, did not give up a run in his last couple innings, and again, gave up 5 runs, 8 hits, 1 walk, over 6 innings. So not ideal. You don't love to see that. But again, Bassett, he was laboring kind of from the beginning. The Giants are one of the best teams in baseball for a reason. They aren't going to get the prettiest hits, but they're just going to keep hitting you. They jumped on the Mets. They had a really good playbook for today. And unlike Tyler McGill's start, the Mets simply were not able to combat this and come over it like they did yesterday in the doubleheader. Because when you look at the Mets offense, they were anemic for quite a bit. And it was all because of that towering southpaw and Carlos Rodon. We talked about Rodon endlessly, And again, if you guys are just chiming in, help us get to 100 likes for the first short-term goal. Always appreciate, folks, and help us get to 15K subs as well. You guys enjoy the content. But Carlos Rodon, who led the league among 2 starts with over 20 strikeouts in his first 2 appearances, that was against the Miami Marlins and the Cleveland Guardians, who have been doing really well offensively to start the season. So that's impressive. But he comes in tonight and he throws 81% of his arsenal being his four-seam fastball and just carved the Mets up left and right. If you guys are aware, the Mets did not hit shit, pardon my French, off of any lefty starting pitcher last season. It didn't matter if you were the absolute best in the league or the worst. All of them were viewed as Cy Youngs when they faced the Mets. And obviously, you're not facing southpaws as a starter nearly as much as you are righties. So I understand the adjustment factor, but the Mets simply did not have it. They were taking way too many strikes right down there in the zone, especially guys like J.D. Davis, who started the day at third base, who might have actually looked good with the glove at third base today. I'm proud of J.D. for his defense, but this was the one game where you really didn't need his defense. You needed his offense, and he struck out with fastballs right down the pipe twice tonight, and then had a liner out to left field too, along with plenty of others. Multiple Mets just struck out by fastballs right down it. Carlos Rodon carved up the Mets good and had 5 scoreless innings, 8 strikeouts, and still leads the league in strikeouts. Again, I wanted Rodon in the offseason for a reason. Don't get me wrong. The Giants were obviously a heavy favorite to land someone like him on a shorter-term deal. They're known for their pitching. They have an amazing pitching staff, an amazing pitching coach, that being in Bailey. So I understood why he went there. But yeah, Rodon has looked like a stud now that he is healthy. But going back now to the Mets and how they faltered, it wasn't just Rodon, but they definitely did grind out at bats as the game went on, because as you see here through Wardy's top 5, you have Pete Alonso as my number 1 star, because Pete Alonso, along with plenty of other Mets hitters tonight, were able to get some hits, just not enough, and not enough clutch hits for the Mets. Alonso went 3 for 4, had some nice opposite field hitting. Weren't the prettiest hits, but got the job done and got that run scored in the 8th inning for the Mets. Should have been more, but unfortunately it was held short because of the Mets not being able to bring in some more. Dom Smith came in a pinch hit that we saw in the 8th, and it was a beautiful snag by Wilmer Flores, no less, who had an RBI in the first inning today for the Giants. Got the snag to end the inning in the 8th. The Mets were rallying there in the 7th, 8th, and a little bit in the 9th, but they just were not able to get enough done. We saw Mark Canha, Sterling Marte apiece. They both had RBIs in this game. This was Mark Canha's first game back, of course, coming off of the COVID list. He looked fine. Again, it was funny how S&Y Boost and Gary, Keith, and Ron were criticizing why Canha was matched up against the submariner in the 8th, that being Tyler Rogers, who's one of, if not the most disgusting reliever in baseball. And Canha gets a base knock right down the pipe, and that brings in a run. So shout out to Canha for coming back. But a guy that really stood out to me today for the Mets, on a positive note at least, before we get to plenty more of the negatives, was Eduardo Escobar. Eduardo Escobar is tied for the MLB lead with 7 doubles this season, and he has just been a tremendous contact guy. He's been hitting gap for gap and has been getting on base at a ridiculous clip to start the season. He went 2 for 3 today, definitely got some nice hits off of Rodon, including an opposite field double, and he had himself a double, 2 for 3. And Brandon Nimmo had a good day at the plate, got on base 3 times, 2 for 4. And we also had another guy that stood out to me that we'll be talking about in a second, is not just Chasen Shreve, who has now pitched, only given up 1 run in over 6 innings so far out of the pen for the Mets. He might not be Aaron Loup, but he is the best bargain of a deal for someone to be Aaron Loup's replacement so far for the Mets, the lefty southpaw. But Sean Reed-Foley as well, in a game that will get diminished. You won't think about it much. Mets fans want to forget about this game after the loss. But SRF came in the 8th and the 9th and got himself back-to-back scoreless innings. So shout out to SRF. Has not had a good start to the season for the Mets. He's thrown in every situation when they need someone to eat innings, and he got the job done. So shout out to him. I was very much impressed. I'm going to address a donation quick, and then we'll go further, folks. Again, shout out all you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. We're breaking down everything that there is to know from this 5-2 loss against the San Francisco Giants for the Mets, as they now look to hopefully bounce back early tomorrow for their day game with Cookie Carrasco on the mound and hopefully secure a series victory against one of the best teams in all of baseball, that being the San Francisco Giants. But Ed, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that, Ed. Really, really do. I'm just annoyed how McNeil doesn't come in this game instead of Cano. He looked bad, but what's with Cano obsession? That's a good point. Now, for people that are unaware, most of you guys are by now, Buck Showalter did not manage this game. So jokingly, I'm going to say this game did not mean anything. When you don't even have your normal manager, who cares, right? So either way, no. Buck not managing, had a procedure done. He should be back tomorrow, hopefully. They had Eric Chavez, Jeremy Hefner, and I believe Dick Stott is his name or something along those lines, or Dick Scott. Love the name, by the way. They combined the three out of the coaching staff to be the essential manager for the Mets today. And when the Mets were starting to bring in pitch hitters there later in the game, when they were getting some guys on base and scoring some runs, especially a righty-lefty matchup, the Mets, instead of bringing in Jeff McNeil, they brought in Robinson Cano, who grounded out to first, so that would move the runners over at the time to second and third in the eighth. And then Dom Smith, and again, Dom should have had a base hit. The expected batting average on that contact was really well. He just got unbelievably unlucky because Wilmer Flores was in the perfect place at the right time. So I'm not harping about that, but you could make the argument, should McNeil have been in that spot? You could definitely make that argument. I understood having Cano in because you want to move the ball over to put more guys in scoring position. Cano did his job in that right, so I'm not going to put too much against him there. Dom, again, I'm not going to gripe too much because he had a really nice contact off the bat. Just unbelievably unlucky given the defensive alignment for the Giants. So McNeil's a first pitch swinger. I love Jeff, and I would have liked to see him in this game overall. I understood why they had him off after the doubleheader yesterday. You want to give him some rest. That went in hand with why J.D. Davis got the start at third, so Escobar could get some rest only playing DH, and which he definitely thrived offensively, which, again, I'm so happy with Escobar. He's been phenomenal for the Mets to start the season, as is the case with most other Mets hitters, other than Francisco Lindor, who unfortunately had an 0 for 1, 0 for 5 today. But again, Lindor's been a stud more often than not. He looked great defensively today, too. But getting back to what we were originally talking about, again, Ed, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. McNeil is someone where he's always known for swinging first pitches. In that spot, I'm not in love with the idea of McNeil being there. I get what you're saying, especially because he has been hitting well to start the season. But first pitch swinging McNeil, that easily could be a double play ball, and then that ends the inning. So there are definitely ways of looking at it. And again, this was a frustrating game for the Mets because, again, they couldn't hit off of Rodon well at all. They definitely got some work on the relievers for the Giants a little bit, which was nice because, again, the Giants relievers are really good. So the Mets were working them better than I initially expected that they would. But then when you saw how the Mets were scoring their runs later in this game, Starling Marte got the run scored with a nice kind of bloop single to bring in a run there in the seventh. But with 2 out, the dummy, and I love Marte, I absolutely do. He's one of my favorite players in the league already. He decides to try to steal a base with 2 out there, and you have multiple guys on, and a clutch rally situation where you're trying to go for it there in the 7th inning stretch, and you can't even get that done. I love Marte, but that is one of those rare occurrences where you should not be trying to steal a bag. You do not do that in a high-risk, high-danger situation with 2 out, multiple on, and you're down by multiple runs, okay? So who knows what would have happened if Marte did not get caught stealing at second. Maybe the Mets would have had a better shot on this one. Either way, I appreciate the Mets. They did have a valiant effort in the second half of this game. We're grinding out at bats. I was proud of Bassett, too, because Bassett, again, did not have his best stuff at all today. Used his entire arsenal, was a little tick below on the velo, nothing crazy. But again, you could tell that he was getting read really well by the Giants, and he had to adapt the best he could. And I know he did give up 5 runs in this one, and it's unfortunate, but he's facing, again, one of the best hitting teams in all of baseball for a reason. And 2, he was able to get in a groove and eat some innings for the Mets down the stretch to give the Mets at least a little bit more leverage with their bullpen than maybe what they would have had from how much Bassett got beat around in the first couple innings. So I appreciate him there. And when you look at the Mets throughout their entire lineup, let's just talk about this for a second, folks, before we go any further here in the post-game coverage. You see Nimmo, again, we just talked about him, 2 for 4. Marte, 1 for 5. Lindor, 0 for, but again, Lindor will bounce back, not a problem. Alonso, 3 for 4 with a run score that we discussed. Eduardo Escobar, 2 for 3 with that double. Marcano, 1 for 4. J.D. Davis, 0 for 3. J.D. Davis, look, J.D., I'm sorry. If J.D. Davis I'm getting to a point with JD, and I know it's early in the season, but even when he seems to be hitting well, he can't hit a fastball right down the pipe. It blows my mind because don't get me wrong, Mets hitters as a whole have struggled with fastballs over the past year, but entering tonight's game, the Mets led the entire league, were tied at least with most runs scored with 2 outs with 27. That's amazing. Shows you their resilience, especially polar opposite from last year. The Mets have been one of the best offensive teams in baseball. They have been one of the best overall teams of baseball with their pitching staff. Their ERA was like right around a run better than any other starting rotation baseball entering tonight's game. Point being is that most guys are clicking right now. But one thing that's certain is that even when other guys are able to hit fastballs, J.D. Davis is still having those same struggles that we saw last year. And I know we dealt with injuries throughout the entirety of the season, but still, This is frustrating. I was really taken back to see how bad his at-bats were today. They were nothing promising. They were not grinded out like the majority of the rest of the Mets hitter today. And again, I'm not trying to nitpick on JD alone. Trust me, there were other Mets hitters that did not have it today, and that needs to be noted as well. But the point is that this is kind of a broken record for JD with just not providing enough for the Mets with what you would hope, either from a defensive side of things, which again, this was the best third base I saw him play in a very long time, and he's not going to be getting that opportunity a lot more going forward. We know that for certain. But two, you need him for his bat more than anything, and when he can't even provide that, it is frustrating for sure. But Robinson Cano comes in, talked about him. Luis Gourmet, 0 for 2 today. Had a run scored, however, so that's solid. Dom Smith, unbelievably unlucky. He just had the worst luck known to man to start the season. And you can definitely tell that's weighing on him a bit from just almost getting traded to now being in a very limited role coming off the bench. Jeff McNeil did not get in that bat, but he did come in as a defense replacement late in the game. James McCann, 0 for 3. McCann was absolutely dreadful today. If you want to rag on someone more than potentially J.D. Davis, it is James McCann. McCann wasn't just bad at the plate today. I did not like his location and how he's working Bassett. And it sucks because I used to be quite a fan of McCann, especially when he first started coming to the Mets, because I liked him with the White Sox. But I've definitely had my harps with James McCann for sure. He's someone where he's batting 120, has not even a 400 OPS. It's a small sample size, I know, but this guy can't hit a lick right now, and he can't even properly defend, in my opinion. I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing from him covering the plate, helping out the pitchers, and I think Nito's more superior on all fronts from what we've seen thus far. And McCann, who's known for his great arm, couldn't even drill out a guy. Multiple stolen bases happened tonight, in which McCann should have hopefully at least had one of those guys out. That wasn't the case. So again, this isn't anything personal against McCann. I hope he bounces back, rightfully so. But man, oh man, I mean, talk about a bad game. James McCann was certainly that bad game in a nutshell. But outside of that, there really isn't much more that I need to harp on in this one. Again, this was a tough loss for the Mets. They grinded out for sure. Yeah, I'm not surprised. You'd have to think that the best team in baseball from last season during the regular season would come back and grind out a game today and jump on pitching early, and they did exactly that. So the Mets should be wary of how they will definitely jump on Cookie Carrasco tomorrow. Cookie, not known for getting out of first innings. He finally got out of one his last start. Can he do it tomorrow? We'll see. But you got to know what to expect with the San Francisco Giants going forward now. They're going to continue to jump on those first pitches. They will take whatever is given to them. So the Mets need to make sure they have proper defensive alignments and just make sure that they are also, in my opinion, probably playing a little bit of a tight outfield to start the game, because the Giants are not getting anything fancy. Yes, they got the Brandon Belt solo shot, just like they got the Jock Pearson solo shot yesterday. But point being is that the Giants are doing some things that the Mets have been doing, and that's just getting on base a lot, okay? Not just from walks, but also simply getting singles. A lot of these were soft singles too. You should not allow this to happen any further. Do your best to eliminate that to the best of your abilities in tomorrow's game, and hopefully that'll help you secure the series victory. Again, that is Cookie Carrasco versus Anthony DeSclafani on the mound tomorrow, right around 7:10 p.m. Eastern time, sometime around there. We'll be doing post-game for that one. But this is where I'm going to cut things off for people on replay right now. So for all my live viewers, I'm going to start answering all your questions, comments, and concerns. So I'm looking forward to that. But for people on replay, this is where we'll cut things off. Mets lose 5-2. They look to bounce back and get the series victory against San Fran. But until then, have a great rest of your night. And of course, let's go Mets, baby.